Welcome back to the bench. Today we have ourselves an Admira classical guitar brought in by one of our regular customers who previously was using this K&A paddle pop stick pickup. Goes underneath the tie there on the bridge. Gives you a good old-fashioned passive piezo element to be able to plug into stuff. They're really cool because you don't have to modify the instrument or anything along those lines, but unfortunately what ends up happening is they end up possibly getting damaged. Because they've got that and it's just sort of floating off the end of the item there, if you've got the cable hanging off and you trip or you move or you try and unplug it too roughly, then you're going to end up bending that there and end up with a crack in the piezo element. That's what's happened this time around. So that means it's time for an upgrade. With customer, she's doing more playing, doing more stuff out there. So she wants something that's going to be a little bit more reliable. It's not going to take up too much room inside the instrument, not going to change the fundamental sound of it and all that kind of stuff. So what we've ended up going with is the LR Bag's iBeam system. Really, really cool little pickup. Mounts underneath the bridge on the inside of the top there. Simple bridge pin mounted preamp, so we just insert it on the end there. One single volume control, which we can just mount here inside of the sound hole for easy access. Because it's all super lightweight, it's not going to add any dampening or anything to the top. The battery just mounts on the end of the heel on the inside of the guitar. And then we're all ready to go. So thankfully, it's a pretty simple install. One drill on the end, stick a couple of bits inside there, plug it in, test it up, see how we went. But first things first, we need to plan everything out so we know exactly what's going where. Since we're going to get inside of the guitar, we need to loosen up some string tension, bring all that down so it's a bit easier to sort of deal with. Use a winder. Don't need to take the tension all the way off, just loosening it enough that we can put the strings to the side to be able to get into the sound hole. So now that's all ready to rock and roll. So we've got enough access there to be able to get inside and do what we need to. What I am going to do though is remove this old pickup, because it is a bit on the dead side. That's the old pickup removed. Put that aside for the customer, they can do what they want with it. So taking a look at the new pickup itself in here, we've got ourselves, that's the preamp. Just mounts there in the tube, the end of the guitar. That's the iBeam itself. That's incredibly lightweight, so that's like an injection molded plastic. So it's not going to dampen the top in any sort of major way, thankfully. Open it up. There we go. Go that way and that way. Come on. There we go. And that there is the entirety of the pickup system. Volume control, battery clip, and that there is the battery bag that will attach on the inside of the guitar on the heel, because that's a nice solid point there, easy enough to get to, and it's not going to dull anything out. As with anything like this, even in my case, I've installed a few of these over the years, but I still want to check out the installation guide and the manual, just so I can make sure that I remember what I need to install, all of that kind of stuff. So according to this, for proper installation, this jack requires a clean 1/2-inch hole in the tail block. Cool. Tunnel through the center of the pickup, middle fan brace, tunnel's wide enough to allow for lateral movement of the pickup, centered over the brace, pickup offset towards and parallel to the tire block by 2 to 5 millimeter. Yep. So it wants us to place it a little bit in front of the saddle there. Cool. But It can go anywhere all the way back to sort of halfway down the tyre block. So what we'll do is we'll put it in, we'll give a couple of tests and see which one sounds the best. It's not the hardest to remove these, thankfully. I mean, if we want, we can just put on a little bit of double-sided tape on the inside there, be able to reposition it, then when we find the exact spot that we want, use the proper adhesive and stick it in. First things first, let's get our holes drilled and everything all lined up, ready to rock and roll. So of course here we are at the back end of the guitar. You can see quite clearly the seam line there between the two halves of the back. I mean the sides, that thing. Well, also the back too. The back will have a line that runs through the back there, but that gives us our center line, which is good. What we want to do is we want to find the middle of it. So there's a couple of ways we can go about it. Of course, we can do the old-fashioned grab a ruler and measure it type thing. Except I don't want Yankee measurements, I want proper measurements. So that there's about 104 mil, right? Alternatively, what we can also do, if you're lucky enough like me to justify having a set of these, or multiples as the case was, using some actual calipers that have a wide enough throat for it. Put it over to metric, and then we just measure top there, down to there. Sure enough, 104.7, we'll just round it down to 104. So of course, if we divide that by 2, that puts us at 52 millimeters. So we want to go 52 millimeters from either side here to the center. Simplest way is if we get a little bit of the masking tape here. Stay. What we want is we want to be able to see that line through there. So that's actually not showing up too well. With that being, relatively difficult to see, what we want to do then is go off to the side, like that. Because right now we just want to work out the actual distance at that point there. So we want 52 mil. 52 mil, grab myself a marquee pencil. There you go. Nope, not that one. That can go away. There we go. Nice shiny bit of pencil lead. Graphite, that thing. And so, we can go along here, there, 50. Cool. So now, we've got our mark right where we want it. What we want to do is we want to give ourselves a nice point that the bit can go in, so it's not going to wander off or move or anything along those lines. So we line up our bit here, scribe, and we just go kadunk, just like that there. There we go. Now that gives us our center mark. What we can also do though, in order to help protect the finish and all of that, to minimize the chances of it going haywire and chipping or going crazy, let's put a bit more tape over it, just to keep the finish all in one piece. So we can also find our little scribe mark using something softer. It's not going to ding up anything. There we go. So we can verify that, of course, by going top to bottom there. Yep. Cool. And that bit of tape there, like I said, it's just going to help us minimize any lacquer chips or anything along those lines. Let's drill us a 1/2 inch hole. Now we've got it marked up, got our pinpoint ready to go. what I'm going to do is put a little small hole there first, make sure it's nice and dead straight. Then we're going to use a stepped bit to actually widen the hole out, which also allows us to keep it a bit straighter. Sometimes I'll use a drilling jig, other times I won't. This particular instance, we're probably not going to use one. As long as we get it nice and straight, should be all hunky-dory. Do it enough times, it becomes second nature. So let's flip it up on its derriere, get it drilled out, ready for the new pickup. And just like that, we'll get ourselves a nice, clean hole there. Of course, we can remove that tape. Barely a mark on the lacquer, which is what we want. Whatever little tiny marks there are going to be held underneath the washers and all the rest of that. So we don't have to stress too much about big massive chips flying out all over the joint and all of that. So yeah, now we need to just start getting stuff installed and putting it all in the right spot. Now to get an idea sort of where we're going to be putting this pickup and the likes, we want to look inside, and you may not be able to see it because, you know, camera angles and all the rest are a little difficult. We've got a mirror inside of here. So that mirror allows me to look in through the sound hole here, shine a little bit of light, and see the bracing. And yeah, looks like this has some locator pins there holding the bridge in place, which will tell us where everything is. Big massive glue drops as well coming out of them. So that gives us an idea exactly where that's going to be, because those are going to be on those sides there of the bridge, either side, which gives us an idea where that is. Now, alternatively, we can always just do it the old-fashioned way and literally just use a measuring stick and poke it in that way, which may be the way that we go about doing it. So with the pickup open, ready to rock and roll, there's the thing that's going to be mounting under about here. This is going to go in that newly drilled hole down here on the end. This little duvalacker is, of course, our volume control, which will mount just ever so nicely there in the sound hole. And of course, the clip there, which will be battery bag up there, up here. There we go, under that, at the heel, that thing. So what we want to do is get everything in place where it needs to be. And we also want to figure out how deep the hole is, the end here, how big the block is, so we know how much to have exposed on this part, because we want it so that there's just enough of the material that's going through to whatever point the thickness may be, so that sticks out just enough to be able to compress in without any sort of issues going on there. And then we'll probably end up putting a little bit of glue or something on that there so it doesn't loosen, because these do have a tendency to do that over time. Even with something like the lock washers there, the star washer, they'll still loosen over time. So a little bit of glue on that just helps prevent it. If it needs to be undone later on, a little drop of acetone, and it's ready to go. So let's find out how this end block, how deep does the end block go? So now we've got to actually install the preamp on the end there. I need to make sure that I get the right amount of depth on the preamp that it can tighten up there without any sort of issues or hassles or anything like that. But how do I know how deep the block is? There's various convoluted and complex ways using specialized tools you can use to actually measure it, or in this case, I've got a rivet, just a standard old pop rivet. Let's see if that's going to focus. There we go. Like that, there we go. So that's a standard pop rivet. Reason being is that's small enough, but with enough length, that all I have to do is take it, put it inside, right up against the edge, and pull it upwards. So when I pull it upwards, it's making contact with the inside of the block. Then with that, all I have to do is get a little bit of tape, something along those lines, in like so. Come on, find the inside of the block. There we go. And just mark it like that. And we're good. And so that's going to tell me how much of the block actually is hanging there. So that there, a little bit of tape hanging out, so between the end of the flange there and the tape is how deep I have to set my preamp to. There we go. End pin jack and preamp are now installed, ready to rock and roll. So the next thing we need to do is get all the internal sides all installed. So now we've installed the volume control and the bridge plate sensor. So the iBeam is right underneath the saddle there, gave it a bit of a test. Sounded pretty good right about there. Now we've got the volume control just here underneath the fingerboard extension a little bit. You can just see the knob a bit and you can get to it with relative ease, and it's not in a spot that's going to be something that's going to be sort of knocked around or fiddled with or anything like that. So you can change it with intention, can't accidentally change it. Now we're going to stick the battery bag all the way up here on the heel block. So this one's a bit of a blind going in. It needs to go up like that. Put it nice towards the bottom of the block. Doesn't have to be perfect because it's actually Velcro. There we go. And so now, once that's there, yeah. Now we can remove the battery bag as need be. The final step in amongst all of this, because we do have cables that are just floating around and doing their thing, we don't want them flopping around and creating noises and stuff inside the instrument, so we want to make sure that they're held in place. So LR Bags have kindly provided us with some of these little bend clips, all foam covered so they're not going to cut through the cables. Basically, we just stick them wherever they need to be out of the way. So we've got a cable that goes from the preamp down here, going up to the bridge plate. Also, a second cable that goes up to volume control, and your third one, which is your battery clip there. So we want to kind of bundle them all together, make sure they're out of the way. We can attach them either to the top of the guitar, or we can attach them over to the sides down here. Just depends on how much cable length we have and how much we can sort of finagle it in. But without talking any more about it, let's just get to it. Shiny new battery. Under there, into there. Battery bag. I want it just with cable facing towards where it's going. And then of course, we just push it in here, up against the Velcro end of the block. There we go. And that ain't going anywhere. Cool. So give it a bit of a shake test. Hear that? No leads rumbling around. That means we've secured them ideally, so we don't have to worry too much about any issues with it banging around and making excess noise and all sorts of crazy stuff. Let's get it tuned up, plug it in, and just give it a quick follow-up, see how it sounds. Now we've got ourselves it plugged in, just to give it a quick test, make sure everything's all hunky-dory, as the way it should be. Cool. That is doing as it needs to. No abnormal noises, no ghost notes, nothing like that. So I'd say that's all hunky-dory. Let's see what it sounds like actually plugged in and with a half-decent audio capture. I'm not much of a flamenco player, not much of a classical player, so, you know, excuse the playing. It's mainly just about sort of seeing what it actually sounds like. And there we have it, one LR Baggs iBeam installed in a classical guitar. Of course, we don't just install them, we also sell them. So if you need a pickup, whether it's by LR Baggs, Seymour Duncan, Fishman, or any other number of brands we happen to stock, visit us at drgear.com.au. And if you do happen to buy something like a guitar or something else and you want it modified before it ever reaches you, we can also accommodate that too. We'll hot rod it before it ever leaves the shop. So until the next time we're here on the bench, keep playing. See you again.